want you to picture this for a second. When you look at a picture of yourself as a child, you have all these thoughts, memories that create a story that connects you to the image you see. You can look at that photo and say, that's me, that's RJ, that's whoever your name is. You know, when we look at the mirror, when we have this idea of what we look like, you know, we could see this image and say, hey, that's me. We have our own individual likes and dislikes, and we can say that these things are my identity. These are what create me and make me unique from everyone else. And these are good things, but I'm going to challenge that. Imagine you had this sensation of all of that falling away. Your sense of self, your sense of individualism, your sense of ego just washing away. And you feel this deep interconnectedness to you and everything around you. A realization that you're not much different than the trees, the air, the dirt, other humans. That you are more similar, more interconnected than you ever possibly realized. That's what a psychedelic experience can be like. I'm sure you've heard horror stories about people freaking out and having bad trips, but I think I know what causes that. See, when you take a psychedelic substance, it starts to challenge your perception of reality. All these preconceived notions you've created in your brain, all these stories that identify your idea of reality. All of that starts to wash away, and it's not always so gentle. Sometimes it can be quite aggressive, that everything you think you know to be a hard fact is just ripped away from you. What happens for a lot of people is that they fight for control. And it's only natural. I mean, as humans, we desire control. We fear what we don't understand, so we try to fight for control. But see, this is what causes the negative experience. This is what causes the bad reaction. When you allow yourself to surrender fully, to give in to this feeling and accept what's happening, that is when the true healing and wonder can begin. When you realize that we're all made of the exact same atoms doing the exact same thing, just vibrations. And I know you hear every hippie and every guy who's done psychedelics talk about vibrations, but it's true. If you take a microscope and you zoom in as far as you can go, what do you see? You'll see atoms. And what do atoms do? Well, they vibrate. They create vibrations. And when you realize that all matter in this earth can neither be created nor destroyed, simply transferred, that is a law of the earth, that we are all made of this same matter, you start to realize that we're more similar than we are different. In fact, many people believe that we are all from the same singular source, and we are just experience our consciousness at different points along the same creative source, creative energy, whatever it is, that we're all part of this same source, this God, Allah, Yahweh, whatever you want to call it. We're all part of the source, the Great Spirit. And we are just simultaneously experiencing ourselves at different points along his own existence. And this is a concept that's really hard to put into words, and I don't claim to be some kind of guru or yogi or someone who really understands anything, but I've had some experiences, and maybe my experiences have changed my life for the better. I think so. And don't be afraid. When you come off of the experience, when the psychedelic of your choice starts to wear off, the ego does return, your sense of self does return, who you are does come back to you. But it's a little bit different. Now that you can remember what it felt like to have an interconnectedness with every living creature in the universe, you look at things different. You start to realize that we are more similar than we are different. And when you view people as more similar than they are different, it's harder for you to hate. It's harder for you to separate yourself from them, and it's easier for you to love. I believe this to be the reason why many psychedelics are illegal in most countries. Because the powers that be benefit from us being divided. They benefit from me thinking the other person is my enemy. Because as long as we're fighting over the crumbs that they drop, we're never going to look upwards. As long as we're convinced that they're our enemy, that we'll never realize that the wealthy people are picking our pockets. Another tip for people who might be curious about this experience is to start small. I can compare taking psychedelics to lifting weights for the first time. Your very first time in the gym, it wouldn't be wise to load up 3 plates and try to bench 315 if you've never lifted a weight ever in your life. Conversely, it wouldn't be wise to go take a hero's dose of mushrooms and expect everything to be okay. Start small. Get a small idea of what it feels like and reflect on it. Reflect on that experience you had. And then the next time you have an experience, maybe you push the dose a little bit higher. But the most important thing to do is to always respect it for what it is. Psychedelics are not a party drug. Counterintuitive to what most of the rave culture will tell you, these are not drugs that you should just go and party and listen to music and be like, whoa, cool visuals. That is a total disrespect for the power that these plants have, in my opinion. These plants should be used with the utmost caution and respect. And you should use them with intention of looking inside of yourself and healing and learning and just discovering things within your psyche that you never thought possible. To view these things in the same lens as alcohol, marijuana, nicotine, cocaine, opiates, the list goes on, it just does a disservice to these drugs. And they are drugs by definition, but I don't even really like calling them drugs. In fact, many Native Americans believe them to be spiritual medicine, to be healing. And the Native Americans were very wise because they knew how to respect these substances. They didn't think about taking these every weekend just to go party and giggle at the funny illusions they see. They took these to heal things within themselves, to search within the soul, within the psyche for something greater than our normal waking existence can find. I think it's absolutely asinine that we've made so much of nature illegal. Humans do this horrible thing where they'll take a plant that is naturally psychoactive and they find a way to make it more intense and more addicting. Let's take the poppy flower, for example. You don't really hear about people throwing away their whole entire lives just to sit around and drink poppy tea every day. If you've ever drank a poppy tea, it is psychoactive, but it is not even comparable to modern day opiates. It is extremely mild. However, we extracted morphine and codeine, and we made those to even stronger things like heroin and fentanyl that are causing a crisis in our country right now. We could take something like the coca leaf, which many people all across South America have chewed on to increase their productivity and energy, and then we had to go and make cocaine out of it, which you all know the dangers of cocaine. We even take things like kratom and kava, and we make these cocktails. I'm sure you guys have heard of the bee-free cocktails that are just dangerous. These substances are all naturally occurring, naturally psychoactive, yet humans have found a way to make them tremendously addicting and tremendously dangerous. And then local governments will see the damage that these extremely addictive substances cause, and then they want to ban them outright. Now, if the war on drugs and prohibition of alcohol have shown us anything, it's that prohibition simply does not work. All that prohibition does is make things more dangerous and harder for people to access. Because if people want a psychoactive drug, whether that's alcohol, mescaline, heroin, whatnot, they will find a way to get it. And it's been proven time after time. I mean, look at this war on drugs. We spent trillions of dollars, and most people in America have tried some kind of illegal drug. Drugs are winning. What we need more of in this country is education, because education is harmless. In fact, it actually is harm reducing, because the more you know about something, the more educated you are, the more informed you are, and the better off you're going to make smart decisions. If people were really highly informed about each of these classes of drugs, I really do believe that the abuse of these drugs would go down. And if they were taught safe usage for the people who do choose to use them, I think we would see massive amounts of harm reduction. And you might look at this video and you might think I have some crazy ideas. You might even label them as liberal, which if you watched any of my videos, you know I really hate identifying an idea or a person as liberal or conservative, but that's extremely common in this country right now, so I say it. But education on any topic is never a bad thing. Knowledge should not be forbidden. You know, that's like the whole thing in the Bible, wasn't it? About a tree of knowledge. Anyway, if you do choose to partake in a psychedelic experience, think about your set and setting, okay? Do it in a place that is comforting and relaxing. And think about the people who are around you. Make sure it is only people you trust, because it's a very vulnerable and emotional state to be in. I wouldn't want to be tripping balls at a rave or around lots of people who I don't know and I don't trust. And above all else, Do your own research. Don't listen to me. I don't know anything. And care. Just care. Give a shit. Do the right thing. Love yourself.